Hello, I'm Brad Powell, the branch manager at the Hastings Branch Library in the St. Johns County Public Library System. Thank you for joining us for a St. John's Reads program. This year, we've chosen The Library Book by Susan Orlean as our community read. This book tells the story of the fire in the central branch of the Los Angeles Public Library in 1986, which damaged more than 1 million books and did more than $20 million in damage. The building reopened in 1993 after 7 years of renovation. Today, I'm here with John Szabo. John is a city librarian of the Los Angeles Public Library, which serves over 4 million people and has 72 branch libraries. This is the largest population served of any library system in the United States. John has held this post since 2012. In 2015, the library received the nation's highest honor for library service, the National Medal for Museum and Library Service. John has more than 25 years of leadership experience in libraries throughout the country. Under his leadership, the Los Angeles Public Library's major initiatives have been immigrant integration and citizenship, improving financial literacy, and providing health resources and programs. John, thank you for agreeing to take time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Glad to talk to you. Thank you.
Most library systems use the title of director. Why are you called the city librarian?
Well, I've directed 5 libraries, and the other 4, I certainly was called director, and that was the title. And I did think it a little unusual coming to LA and with that title. It's actually, I think, something that is more common on the West Coast. My colleagues in San Francisco, in San Diego, Seattle, Denver are all city librarians as well. So not certain how that got started, but actually I love the title. It is a little confusing for some people to understand what the responsibilities are and that I am the chief executive of the organization. But I do love having librarian in the title because I am a librarian and I love librarians and libraries, and it works that way.
Susan Orlean included some interesting stories about some of your predecessors. The one that stuck out the most to me was Charles Loomis, who was working from home in the early 1900s while managing the library and overseeing numerous programs, much as the rest of us are doing today. Do you have a favorite city librarian who served before you?
Well, I do, and there have been 20 of us, including myself, since 1872 when the library was founded, and certainly Charles Fletcher Lummis, I will say, is quite the character, and I think probably has the most written about him. He famously was a journalist who walked from Cincinnati, Ohio, to LA, and was fascinated with the Southwest, and was quite a character. And his home, actually, that he referenced, El Alisal, that he built himself, is still standing in Los Angeles and is a place that Angelinos and visitors to LA can visit. I think there are many wonderful city librarians. I think a real favorite, though, and one that actually is referenced in Susan Orlean's The Library Book, and one that has been sort of front of mind recently for us, is Mary Foy. Mary Foy served as city librarian from 1880 to 1884, and she was only 18 years old, had just graduated Los Angeles High School when she was appointed to the post, made some notable improvements to the library. She was the 3rd city librarian, and she actually lived until 1962, when she was just almost 100 years old. She was actually 99 when she passed away. But she is much loved and respected and revered for certainly being the first woman city librarian, but also she was a suffragist. And that's why we've been talking a lot about and actually honoring Mary Foy recently. Of course, the nation's celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, and we put even though we're in, of course, our libraries are not open because of COVID, we placed a wonderful plaque recognizing the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage and recognizing her contributions to it. So I'd have to say Mary Foy. She's one of many characters in the history of city librarians in LA, but really someone for us all to know more about and to admire.
There are 72 branches of the Los Angeles Public Library. How are you able to manage so many branch libraries?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to manage every single one of them, but we have an incredible team of hundreds and hundreds of staff here at LA Public Library. We're very proud of all of our libraries, central and 72 branches. We are not a cookie cutter library system. We don't want to be a cookie cutter library system. Our branches are very different, serving the diverse communities of Los Angeles. We certainly have common initiatives across all of our libraries, but we really want each location to have some flexibility to be able to really respond to changing community needs and the unique needs of each of those communities. But it's with a lot of trust and with a lot of belief in the values of librarianship and the skills and abilities and leadership of librarians, frankly, and library staff throughout the organization. We have an initiative we call Take the Lead, which is about really exercising leadership from any place and position within the organization, recognizing that those who are shelving materials and library clerks and library assistants and librarians and administrators can all exercise leadership. But it's a big system, almost 503 square miles across the city, but a fantastic system. And I think it goes back to that sense of service and spirit that everyone in the system has. And you know, while I can't make it to every single library as often as I'd like, it's good to have confidence in all of those wonderful staff that are providing services. And also we have enormous, as public libraries across the country, and certainly in St. Johns County you do as well, incredible community support. And that comes in the form of people joining friends groups, people selling books and book sales, going to a county commission meeting or a city council meeting, advocating for the library. But that means so much volunteering for the library. That is a huge part of how we're able to be successful and how I'm able to lead this organization.
I know you started after the fire and after the renovation of the Central Library was complete, but what can you tell us about the fire and the rebuilding process?
Well, it's a legendary story here in Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles Public Library was thinking about a renovation and expansion of that building when the fire happened. There were many conversations in the community about the historic building and the preservation of it, and I think what happened after the fire with the Save Our Books campaign, which Susan speaks about in the book, the tradition of philanthropy around the library that really grew from that moment. It was really a moment when Los Angeles stepped up to say, this is an incredibly important institution, and preserving this building is very important. And that moment in Los Angeles history is very much looked at by historians, by historic preservation advocates, certainly library supporters, as a key time when you know, Los Angeles, you know, really valued the preservation of that building, and the LA Conservancy really got its start then. And you know, LA is such a place about innovation and new ideas and starting anew, and has not always had the reputation of being a city that really embraces and preserving its past. And there really is a hunger and a desire to learn more about LA's past. And I think the city now looks back at that time in the 80s and early 90s when the building was preserved and then ultimately expanded as a real special positive moment in LA's history.
What changes were made to the libraries to prevent another disaster like this?
Well, anything related to fire or fire suppression is obviously a front burner matter for us at any of our libraries, and certainly at our central library. I'd say even to this day, we are even more sensitive than one might normally be to all things related to fire and fire protection, and a really incredible relationship with the Los Angeles Fire Department. The current chief, actually, Chief Terrazas, was actually working the fire that day when the fire occurred in 1986. We do have 24/7, in addition to all the expected fire suppression technologies, we do have 24/7 presence of security at Central Library. So we have eyes, ears, and folks walking the building all the time, 365 days a year. And certainly our staff are very mindful. And the design of the renovation, as well as the design of the addition, were certainly done with safety and mitigating any kind of disaster as well.
When we were in the midst of our selection process for St. John's Reads, libraries and most other businesses were in the midst of closing due to the pandemic. Our committee was struck by the parallels of our patrons being disconnected from the library space and us being disconnected from our patrons. With the earlier experience of being closed after the fire, could you talk about how your library handled the more recent closure and how staff may have felt parallels to your earlier closure?
Sure. You know, as with public libraries across the country that had to make that decision, that understandable, that defendable, but that tough decision to close to the public in mid-March, it was difficult. And to cease operations, understanding how important the physical presence of our libraries are to people in the community, I think it's particularly painful and difficult to know that our libraries and the physical spaces are not available for all of those vulnerable populations that rely on us so much. But that said, we knew we had a fabulous staff, but I think the resiliency and the desire to serve, the nimbleness of our staff to be able to transition to digital services, to think creatively about what our New Americans program might be for helping immigrants to take that first step on the path to citizenship, what story times might be, musical programs, author visits, all that we might do digitally. It also has shined a real light on the issue of digital equity and the fact that so many don't have access. And then we, you know, obviously transitioned eventually to Library to Go, which is what we call our curbside service, making our physical collections available, which is wonderful, but there's still services and things that happen in the physical location that we're not yet able to provide. And that, frankly, is very, very, very difficult. Although I continue to be impressed and amazed by library staff and all those who support us, certainly, in thinking of ways of how we can serve, how we can be effective during this time, because we know that our community needs us. And that's true whether you're serving a population of 500 in a rural community, whether you're a suburban community, mid-size, or a large city like LA.
The library book is about library history, library services, and a little bit of eccentricity and mystery. Why do you think it became such a best-selling book?
Well, it is about eccentricity, and there's quite a bit of that in the book. It's just an incredible story, you know, and I think people find it fascinating when they learn that this significant event happened, and so many people weren't aware of it or didn't know about it. And certainly Susan references Chernobyl and the fact that happened at the same time. I think the real reason, in addition to a really great story and an incredible cast of characters, from, you know, some of our staff on the loading dock to Charles Fletcher Lummis and others, but Susan Orlean is just an incredibly talented writer. And Susan Orlean has this amazing ability to do this very detailed dive into a story, whether it's orchids and the community of orchid enthusiasts in Florida, or whether it's the LA Public Library or Rin Tin Tin or any of the other subjects she's written about, and really make them unbelievably fascinating and draw the reader in. And we were just delighted at LA Public Library that she chose us and found the stories of our staff and those who have interacted with the library over the years worthy of a story, and that she wanted to write about us. And I hope, and I've heard from people across the country, that her lifting up and highlighting all of the things that libraries are doing today. And every library is not the same, certainly, but St. Johns County is doing things that Los Angeles isn't, and that are amazing and wonderful and innovative. She's told the story not just of LA Public Library, but of public libraries and how essential they are, how amazing they are. And I think a lot of people who are not library folks who read the book are going to and have sort of had a light bulb come on to say, wow, I had no idea that libraries are doing that. And it pleases me so to know that libraries are so relevant to this day. And that's a real gift that she's given to the nation and to libraries.
What was it like to work with Susan Orlean on her project? After reading her book, I was impressed by how deep of a dive she took into the world of libraries while doing her research.
It was great. Susan is a delight. She has a great sense of humor. She is funny, smart, and I remember meeting with her years before the book was published, and not that long after I came, and learning about her interest in the story, and initially wondering what the angle might be. And at the time that she began the book, she really didn't know that she was going to focus in on the fire. I think she had some idea that that would play a major part of the book. But I'll tell you, I was a little nervous. You know, you never know whether it's going to be a good story or not. You know, it turned out beautifully, of course, but as someone who leads the organization, deeply loves the organization, and is the caretaker of the organization, I wanted it to be represented in the best light possible. When I first met with her, I remember you know, being impressed with her connection to and love of the library, and I essentially provided her full access. I said, you know, you need to visit branches, you need to talk to staff in all corners of the organization. Please go to the loading dock and see how amazing our staff are there. So she really understood how the library worked, all of its mechanics and operations. And she really did a deep dive, not only into our institution and all the corners of it, but as you know from the book, from libraries elsewhere in library history. But it was a delight. She remains a friend of the library, a supporter, and she's really enjoyed the popularity of the book globally. And I hear from librarians everywhere.
Well, that was our final question today. Thank you for taking time out to talk with us, John.
My pleasure, and greetings from LA to all wonderful library supporters and residents of St. Johns County and Florida. I'm so glad you're doing this, and I obviously think you picked a great book. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Everyone, please like, share, and comment this interview. Thank you so much.